Yes.
Okay, so you go.
Thank you so much, Art, for joining us today with this interview, explaining everything we get to know about Ormus. What is Ormus? What the special benefits of Ormus and all the metaphysical attributes that it has.
And then you mentioned that you would explain to us the scientific and also the esoteric explanation for Ormus. So that's the first question. Okay. What is Ormus?
Okay, when I say scientific, I mean the scientific materialistic perspective on the substance that is called Ormus. The substance called Ormus has had many names, the latest of which is Ormus. And that stands for orbitally rearranged monoatomic substance under study. And that was given to it by David Hudson back in the 70s when he stumbled across it in his cotton field in Arizona and wondered what the heck it was, because it exhibited some properties that were just not normal. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So since that time in the 70s of its rediscovery and relabeling as Ormus, the only access to information about it is from that point of view. Yeah. And there's so much more to it than what's been put out on the web about it, because it's everything out on the web about it is from the materialist standpoint, and it's way outside that box. Let's put it that way. So in ancient cultures, since it's a naturally occurring phenomenon, it's been discovered over and over and over again in Egypt, in China, in India, and anywhere there was a society and a culture that was advanced enough to have alchemists, because it really is an alchemical phenomenon. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to state right off that the scientific materialist standpoint, which has labeled it Ormus, thinks it's a physical substance, monoatomic substance that you ingest, metabolize, it gets distributed through the circulatory system and is dealt with on the cellular level in that way. And that's not the level it works on at all. It's an energy field like an EMF or like homeopathy is an energy. So the substance known as Ormus is actually the material substance that the energy field likes to hang out with, like the iron bar of a magnet. Mm-hmm. You have an iron bar that is conditioned in a certain way. A magnetic field will arise around that. And the magnetic field has the properties to attract ferrous metals. In the same way, the
saved by the bell.
in the
which basically everything is energy. We're energy, right? So it's just natural that we look or attract an energetic medicine.
The way we are energy needs to be looked at in the Vedic model of reality. You have a description of how infinite potential, which is called Parabrahman or Paramashiva, the unmanifest, how that unmanifest potential manifests into that which becomes the solid objects we perceive. Mm-hmm. And so in the Vedic model, there's, depending upon which school you're looking at, there's either 25 or 36 tattvas, Tattwa. That translates as thatness. And they go from the subtlest level of that unified state into the initial polarization of Shiva and Shakti, or yin and yang, all the way down to the five elements. Space, air, fire, water, and earth. And it's those panchabhutas, the 5 elements. Panch means 5, bhuta means element. It's those 5 elements that exist on all the different levels and various degrees of subtlety that combine to form the physical or the apparent form. And so this is getting pretty esoteric, but the energy
We like it.
Yeah.
would be an unmanifest, an energetic potential can manifest as physicality as it comes denser and lower in vibration.
True.
So it's like octaves of vibration. You have like a piano keyboard, the lowest notes on the left side have their octaves all the way up to the highest notes on the right side. So each octave is going to be a reflection of that same vibration at a higher or lower level.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ormus, or the substance known as Ormus in the West, is actually an energy field that crosses all the different octaves.
Mm-hmm.
And it has what it does is it allows all the different expressions of a thing on all the different levels of expression and all the different octaves to come back into alignment, so that the archetypal pattern inherent in the initial expression can express in its full potential. And that's what the energetic field creates conditions to happen.
Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So all living organisms can benefit from it. So if you have this energy field in your sauerkraut, the little probiotics that generate the pickling of the vegetables will be optimized, and therefore your sauerkraut will be optimized.
Yeah.
If you put it in your kombucha, it will the little critters that make the kombucha will be optimized, therefore your kombucha will be optimized,
Yeah.
etc.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
we can put it into our kimchi.
Yeah.
yeah, and so agricultural uses are pretty major for all growing vegetables and fruit crops.
Yeah. To
Yes.
reach their fullest potential. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember seeing the pictures of those walnuts. They were
As
huge.
the tennis balls.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's crazy.
So what they did is they watered the plant, I mean the tree, the walnut tree with
What they did is they took 2 small walnut trees in 5-gallon containers. They took them out of the container, they dug the hole to plant them, and they soaked one tree's root ball in an Ormus solution. And then they planted it, and the other one they didn't.
Wow.
And then they applied a certain amount every year to the soil around the base of the tree. And one had access to express the full potential of its archetypal pattern. And that's what happens. The walnuts were that big because that's how it was designed to express, if it had nothing that was limiting or distorting the expression of that archetypal pattern.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So traditionally over in India, in Siddha medicine, this substance has been known as mupu, MUPPU, and it's been traditionally used to potentiate herbal medicines. You put this in your herbal mix, and all of a sudden your medicine is between 10 and 100 times more potent and effective.
Wow. Yeah.
That's incredible. So I
Yeah.
guess we could add this to our herbal tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what's happening when you add it to your products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, which
So
we've been doing.
all the benefits increases even more so because of
Yeah, it allows the synergy of all the other ingredients to optimize.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And especially art, like I noticed that so what we use a different supplier before, and we didn't test anything like the percentage and everything, but when we use your Ormus at your suggested percentage, incredible difference. It's like night and day. Before I didn't really know, like, yeah, I could see like it worked well on my skin, but after with your Ormus plus the percentage, my skin was just even like, it was bright, it was vibrant, and there like the sunspots started to go away. So it's like there's also something to say about how you collect it and your process and everything.
So I guess there is a
Oh.
difference between Ormus
Yeah.
and Ormus, right?
Yeah. The difference is the perspective. If you look at it from just a scientific materialist perspective, you miss out on a lot of the essential criteria you have to pay attention to.
Mhm.
When we collect, it's a naturally occurring substance, so we don't make it, we collect it.
Yeah.
And because of the nature of the substance, it will imprint on the consciousness of the person doing the collecting.
Yeah.
So you have to be in a very unconditioned state when you collect it, otherwise you will contaminate and limit and distort the expression of its potential.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, so talking about collecting Ormus, I know that you guys have some amazing, like out of the world experiences while collecting Ormus. Can you share some stories with us?
You have any?
I think feeling the presence of some of these great Siddha masters while we are collecting it is very powerful.
Wow. Wow. I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah.
It is time for it to be reintroduced accurately
Mm-hmm.
to humanity, and all the misunderstandings and distortions of what it is need to be clarified. And for that, humanity needs to move past the limitations of the scientific materialist perspective that consciousness is an epiphenomenal byproduct of chemicals in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the atheistic perspective that most science is ruled by, and to acknowledge that consciousness is a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And take that into consideration with what you do. So when I was first exposed to it, I intuitively knew that it was part of Siddha medicine. So my research took me to the Siddha pharmacopoeia, where I find that it's been part of that pharmacopoeia for thousands of years. And so I said, well, let's do it. Let's collect it in alignment with those principles. And so when you collect it according to the principles of a thousands of year old medical system that takes into account the subtler realms,
Mm-hmm.
then you get a different product than somebody who's just, following a recipe on the physical plane only.
Yeah. Out of the ego mind. Yeah.
Yeah, it will have some juice. It will have some effect because of what it is, but it will be nowhere near able to express its full potential
Exactly.
because it's been conditioned by the perspective and attitude, the level of consciousness of the
Yeah.
person doing the collection.
And where did you learn how to collect Ormus? Did you learn in India or?
Initially, I ran into a woman whose partner was the alchemist that worked with David Hudson to explain what it was that he had discovered. And this is an interesting story because it's pretty outside the box, but this fellow who's a metallurgist, he was contacted in his capacity as a metallurgist to help explain what this monoatomic substance supposedly was. However, going back in his life, when he was 7 years old, he was fishing on a pier off Washington state coast, caught a bunch of fish, put them in a 5-gallon bucket full of salt water from the ocean, took it home, gave the fish to mother to cook, and took the salt water into his bedroom where he had a kiddie chemistry set, a chemistry set for kids that had what he needed. And he spontaneously remembered how to create the mother solution and precipitate out this substance, this energetic field. He precipitated out the substance that that energy liked to hang out with. And he had a past life memory where he used to do this for King Solomon
Interesting.
a long time ago somewhere else. And he'd been taking this stuff since he was 7 years old.
Wow.
So fascinating.
And this woman that I ran into was his partner. And she looked at me and said, "You can collect Ormus." She was very clairvoyant. And I said, "What the heck is Ormus?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Don't worry, I'll show you." And took me over to her place, and on her kitchen table whipped up a batch.
Wow.
Did a collection right there. At which point I said, "Oh, I intuitively knew this was a very healing phenomenon."
Wow. Yeah.
And I just started following the recipe. And then I started getting deeper and deeper into it. Went over to India, did a lot of research, and started to be able to contextualize it in a much more complete manner than just from the scientific materialist limited perspective.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And then actually, what were we were gonna ask for some fun experiences or stories, some inspiring stories on
Yeah.
people using Ormus and healing themselves or healing their skin or injuries.
Yeah.
Can you share some with us? We actually have some to share
Yeah.
too.
And I know Kasha has like an amazing story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would love to hear it,
I'd
Kasha.
like to preface this that when about a year after I just got into it, I was asked to present at an international conference on Ormus.
Mhm.
And all the presenters were presenting from the scientific materialist perspective,
Yeah.
thinking it's a chemical or an atomic molecular, in that vein. And I had a PowerPoint that was the substance currently known as Ormus in the West from the Vedic perspective, where I compared and contrast. This is Ormus from the scientific materialist perspective. This is Ormus from the Vedic perspective.
Interesting.
And the Vedic model of reality is much more complete because it moves into the realms of reality that scientific materialism doesn't acknowledge as real at all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I still have that. I've actually presented at 2 conferences in that way. And I still have that PowerPoint to present if anybody's interested in really going down the rabbit hole.
Oh, yes. And I think we all are. And I think especially now in this day of age, 2022, we're kind of going back into spirituality and, opening our minds to energy. And I think like that, and also this is the reason why Ormus is coming out and it wants to be known even more so because, we all need to heal some parts of our etheric bodies. And, and especially with this, this new cycle that we're in, the
Aquarius
Yuga,
age.
yeah. So it's kind of like a perfect timing that, we met you, Art, and your passion is just to reintroduce Ormus to the world.
It's your
Siddha medicine in general to the world.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
And I first of all, I'd like to get the name changed because even just the word Ormus, which is an acronym for orbitally rearranged monoatomic substance, sticks it firmly in the scientific materialist context
Mhm.
and how to get it out of that. The Tamil word in the pharmacopoeia of Siddha medicine it's called mupu, which is a strange sounding word, but at least it doesn't stick it in the atomic materialistic context.
Yeah.
So another label needs to come up that doesn't limit it like the word Ormus,
Yeah.
and gives it a more expansive label that will allow people to perceive it with an unlimited filter rather than a filter that limits it just to a material substance.
Yeah, and I think that's really smart because when you explain what Ormus is, I think maybe because of that label Ormus, people don't really get it. Like they get it, but they don't really get the full picture.
Yeah.
No, they only understand really that it's some sort of a mineral.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the explanation.
And that's mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a mineral substance that the energetic field likes to hang out with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not limited to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very
so the stories Boy,
Some healing beneficial stories, anything you have.
yeah. Well, there's one student of mine who's actually had 2 heart transplants,
Wow.
and his whole system, his immune system is compromised because he has to take immune suppressants to make sure that his physiology does not reject
Reject
the
it.
foreign tissue of the heart.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he just turned 60. He had his first heart transplant for about 14 years, which is very long for transplant.
Yeah.
And I was part of his home support team when he got his second transplant, and made sure that he got proper nutrition. And he had a very profound skin condition where on his legs was very, very dry, and a lot of peeling of skin on his legs. And so I gave him a solution of Ormus and castor oil that he's been applying, and that is taking care of that to a large degree. And he's actually on a very healing Ayurvedic diet as well. And his doctors can't believe how strong his heart is. In fact, he just had a electrocardiogram, is that it, with the echo? And the rate at which his heart was pumping was very, very healthy. It was above normal, and subtraction, what's that called?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but the amount of blood pumped per cycle was better than normal.
Wow.
And
That's wonderful.
then another person that I work with, they were scalded in a restaurant accident,
Yeah.
and they went to a dermatologist who said, "This is a second-degree burn. We're going to need to do skin grafts. There'll be some scarring, and that's the best we can do." And they took pictures and whatnot. And then COVID broke out,
Uh-huh.
and she wasn't able to go back to the doctor. And I gave her some of the Ormus and the castor oil, and it completely healed by itself. There's no scarring.
That's amazing.
There's no skin grafts. And she then went back to the dermatologist and said, "Here, see for yourself. You told me I need all this, and this is what I did instead, and these are the results." And
That's
so he's
incredible.
scratching his head over that.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it has beautiful benefits for the skin, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I have a short story actually as well that I always get these calcium deposits, these little spots on my skin. And I have to go to the dermatologist. They have to use a little needle and then pop it open and squeeze it out and whatever.
Fun.
So yeah, fun stuff. And not even talking about the time that I have to invest into this one little thing to go all the way to the dermatologist.
Yeah.
It's like a half a day.
Yeah.
So I decided that I put your Ormus into our Mahina Beauty facial oil, and I started to apply it to everywhere, but especially to this area, twice a day. And in less than a week, it fell off.
That's
And there was
incredible.
no scarring, nothing.
That's
It was
incredible.
just beautiful. The skin was beautiful underneath it and was just gone.
Yeah, incredible.
So from now on, this is all I'm going to do.
Yeah. The same with me. I had a wart on my hand that I thought, oh, shoot, I have to get it burnt off with a dermatologist. I was even thinking about, I put the Ormus in the face oil as well, put some on my face and my hands. And like, I think it was maybe like a few weeks later, it's like, oh wow, my hands
Yeah,
are
I
so
remember coming over and I
smooth.
said, Maria, what happened to your thing on your
Yeah.
hand?
It was getting bigger and it was kind of looking like it's like not too
not
pleasant.
so good.
Yeah, so it was gone completely. Yeah, and Akasa has a great story about Ormus and the
Your
ointment.
injury, yeah.
Yeah.
I do, yes. I just met him, and we were around a big coffee table, and I got up too fast and banged my shin right into the edge of the coffee table, and it hurt so bad. I mean, you could see the dent in the bone, it was my bone. It was just so painful. And he said, "Here, try this." And so I put some Ormus mixed with castor oil and shea butter, I think. And I skinned my shin as well,
Wow.
and put that on. And I thought I was going to have this dent for days.
Uh-huh.
I didn't.
Wow.
Within 24 hours, it started to fill in, and within 3 days, you wouldn't have even noticed that it had happened. I was amazed.
And one thing I like about Ormus is that, you can, you know how like with Kasha, you can put it on, any kind of inflamed skin. So it's gentle, but it's like, it's so effective. It's so powerful, but still so gentle, which is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things about the time we live in, it's such an opportunity. Ideally, science, philosophy, and religion should be synergistic
Mm-hmm.
and reinforce each other. Right now, science, philosophy, and religion are antithetical to each other.
Yeah.
They're separate and they're arguing with each other. That's how they've been construed. And as we go through the cycle of the yugas, as we go through the moving out of the limited cycle into a cycle where our consciousness will be more expanded, we will re-perceive the synergy between science, philosophy, and religion as three ways to appreciate the reality that gave rise to our being and the whole universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so important to
Yeah.
have that synergy. And hopefully one day everybody has access to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just moved and I'm up in Marin County, and I've been here for almost 2 weeks today.
2 weeks today.
Great.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
The goal is to start to find a place to set up production, to take care of the various different accounts that are wanting Ormus as an ingredient in their products.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of natural herbalists that want to start putting it in that are putting it in their products and want to put it in more of their products.
Yeah.
So there's many different applications. There's the agricultural application. There's the medicinal application.
Yeah.
Obviously in cosmetics,
Mm-hmm.
it has its use. Ayurveda has a major system in terms of cosmetics. So it's considered part of the medical system.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
So
Right.
we're moving closer to finding a place, to setting up the production facility to be able to collect enough of this to service accounts, to start getting it out to the general public.
Perfect.
And so stay tuned for that.
Yes, definitely.
yes.
Even for us, like, we're in the process of like thinking and developing new products. So of course, like all the products we have, it's all going to be Ormus. We consider ourselves Ormus skincare. So
Yeah.
it's going to be all of your Ormus. So yes, we are excited to have you have your factory like up and running so that we can get more of your Ormus.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We're getting there, one foot in front of the other.
Yes,
absolutely. And let's see, I don't know, I think we pretty much covered everything everything in here, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other things you want to add or any stories to share?
Yeah, for sure. When people get to the point of starting asking the important questions, who am I? Why am I here? And really fundamental questions about existence, where you really have to enter into the spiritual realm to find the actual answers to these questions.
Yeah.
Not just theoretical, intellectual understanding, but actual experiential cognitions to these answers to these questions. Then the knowledge of the place of substances like this energetic field that currently goes by the label Ormus
Mm-hmm.
will the true value will be perceived, because they will help facilitate people expand their consciousness to the ability to experience and actual answers to their questions of who am I and why am I here and how does all this stuff work, rather than, for the most part, blundering around playing karmic bumper cars,
Yeah, which is really important in today's age. Yeah.
So when the spiritual value can naturally flow into and support people's existence rather than just being something they do one day a week, maybe, because it's always been done that way. But when they actually understand that they are an expression of that infinite potential, and that the reason we're here is for that expressed value of the divine transcendent to manifest as the divine immanent,
Mm-hmm.
and that cycle going back and forth between that pulse of expansion and contraction, that the whole reality of the universe emerges out of and resolves back into over an incredible amount of time. When we consciously become aware that that is actually what's going on, then we can wake up out of the limited illusion and the consequent pain and suffering that accompanies that level of ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well said.
so it all has a spiritual basis,
Yeah.
and we're opening up to and experiencing that in a natural unfoldment of the cycles. And the scientific materialist perspective has denied that reality for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But people are waking up to the fact that, hey, wait a sec, this model of reality is insufficient.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of stuff we're discovering that doesn't fit in that box, and we can't be in denial any longer.
Exactly.
So let's just allow reality to manifest and inform us in ways that allows our fulfillment to emerge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Beautiful. And
Yeah.
actually, I do have a question, Art. Do you take Ormus every day, and how many times, and how do you take it?
Good question.
That's an individual thing, because it's when the system is optimized to a certain degree, it doesn't need any more optimization.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, there'll be a time where you don't need to take it. It's not like something you need to take this every day forever.
Right.
It's like take it until
Mm-hmm.
But if you're taking it on its own, but if you're adding it to a product, it's going to always be optimizing the ingredients in that product.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
There's two different things here.
Two different.
If you're taking it for your personal development, that's one application. If you're potentiating a medicine or a cosmetic, that's another application. So
Right.
one is an ongoing thing. And yes, if you're using this, then the body goes through its changes and will need to be have these products. But to expand your consciousness or optimize the expression of your being, that's called sadhana. That's a spiritual life,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a different application. And you don't necessarily need to take it forever in that regard, because you'll take it until it's done its job,
Mm-hmm.
and the system is coherent enough to reflect your true nature in an undiminished fashion.
Right.
So that you should really be involved in a legitimate spiritual lineage with a teacher that is guiding your spiritual evolution.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and this is definitely outside the realm of scientific materialism.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, the utilizing it in terms of allowing the synergy of the different ingredients to optimize and have the full potential available, that's an ongoing thing. And that you can do energetic testing to find out how much and what and where. And that's how I found out how much is optimal to put in things.
Mhm.
And why is 1 to 3% of the paste an optimal amount? Because that's all that's needed to bring about that optimal synergy. Any more is a waste of time. Any less is not enough to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the muscle testing, or the type of inquiry that you can do energetically to determine how much of what, when, where, why, and how.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it really can be added to anything. Can be added to smoothies, to teas, to your soup, to anything it's going to enhance and optimize whatever
Yeah.
you put it in.
Recently, I saw some chocolate, Ormus chocolate, which was
Oh.
kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've had some people approach me about putting Ormus in the chocolate, but there again, it depends on the quality and nature of the Ormus and how it was collected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Ormus water you were talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
That's a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, I'd like to put together an Ormus tasting so that people can experience the different product of the different collectives of Ormus.
Yeah.
And see for themselves, which
Wow.
one is the one that gets it for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And we definitely would love to visit your place one day when you're all set up. We would love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take the factory tour.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And since we're adding new products, we're gonna need more Ormus.
Yeah.
Well, and when we get the agricultural thing going, we're looking for a defunct vineyard or something up here in wine country to resuscitate the vineyard with Ormus
That'd be amazing.
to see what the grapes are like, because there are medicinal wines in Ayurveda and in Siddha medicine.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
And to see what would a wine be like that's produced by grapes that were optimized with Ormus.
Wow.
that would be
Or there's
incredible.
apple orchards, just whatever. There's a lot of agriculture that is non-functional because of depletion of the soil or mismanagement or whatnot. So we're looking for some of those to resuscitate through Ormus therapy for agriculture.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great way to give back as well. Yeah. A wonderful way. Yeah.
Because it is medicine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Siddha medicine, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, this I'm not going to say the old word. It's mupu now.
Yeah.
Mupu is such an amazing medicine. It's just I feel that it covers the entire system. It's not just physical. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's so well rounded that I think that especially going forward, there's only going to be more and more people that's going to be interested and will want it into their system as well. So
the main limitation at this point is people's inability to contextualize it appropriately.
Exactly.
Because their model of reality is insufficient.
Mm-hmm.
So there are lots of different ancient cultures that have had this, but the only one that has survived that has the most intact model and description of reality is the Vedic model.
Vedic. Okay.
Yeah. So the Vedic Vidyas are all the sciences of the Vedic model. Their astronomy was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Their agriculture, their animal husbandry, their medicine,
Mm-hmm.
all these different aspects of reality that we take for granted and are limited by the scientific materialist perspective are fully informed and fleshed out from the Vedic perspective.
Yeah.
And so that is my reference point.
Okay.
And if people don't have any understanding of that, they will look at it through whatever filters they have.
Mm-hmm.
Since most people are recovering materialists, they will.
Yeah.
It's like looking at Ayurveda from an allopathic standpoint, trying to understand Ayurveda from an allopathic perspective just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to get in and do a little bit of work to understand the principles of Ayurveda and then construct that perspective. And then you don't get confusion and distortion.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so hopefully people are moving in that direction and moving out of just a consumer-oriented society. Oh, just if I buy it will fix what's broken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to participate.
Mm-hmm.
You have to participate consciously in life and how it all comes together and works, because it all arose out of that infinite ocean of pure potential And all the waves on the ocean are nothing but that consciousness, but a differentiated state and interacting. So the one becomes many, the many interact, all the while being one in the first place.
Right.
So to have a description of the finer and finer details of that dynamic needs to arise in humanity's consciousness, so that we can understand nature to a greater degree, align with nature, and therefore enjoy the support of nature consciously.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Okay.
Yeah. Our motto is in sync with nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on our products actually as well.
Yeah.
And now talking about nature, would you recommend Ormus to our four-legged kids, for the dogs?
Oh, yes. Yes, most
They
definitely.
can be enlightened.
Well, it will just optimize the expression of the pattern of that form.
Yeah.
To whatever degree is that's possible.
Yeah.
Because the longer the out of sync has been there, the longer it will take to get in sync.
Yeah.
And that time frame may exceed the lifespan of that form.
Oh, that's true.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
So we're at wherever we are, and so we just start from here and see where it goes. But since we keep coming back every time.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite story with our animal friends is I met a canary that was taking Ormus on a regular basis, and the canary was an elderly bird, and the owners noticed that when it didn't get its Ormus, it was not doing well, and then we would come by and drop off some Ormus, and the bird would, perk up again.
Wow. Oh,
So
that's
it
cute.
increased the longevity for a canary.
Oh, wow.
that's
I love
wonderful.
that. But lucky canary.
Yes.
There are people that use Ormus for their horses, parrot. Yeah, it's
Everyone uses it.
we're looking at ways of recycling the leftovers of the process, and
That's right.
we'll have a lot of highly saline water left over from the production of it. And one of the things I wanted to do is to evaporate the water, reclaim the salt, and make it into salt licks for animals, because there's a lot of the Ormus energy still in the leftovers.
Right.
And so
Would it be safe to drink?
There's enough of the energy left in the solution after the precipitate is garnered from it to add to water to make Ormus water, and that's what one of my clients is doing.
Okay.
And then when you evaporate the H2O out of it and have the salt over here, the water still has a high ormic energy content, or muku energetic content, which then if you take that and purify it to reverse osmosis and deionized water, it still has the energy field in it, and using that for the next batch.
Wow.
It just kind of compounds it, which means that the energy field will be purer and more of a higher intensity.
Yeah.
So we're looking at ways of recycling everything so that it will compound and increase in purity and efficiency.
Yeah. I have some ideas right now. Like maybe I could, well, when we go to see you in Marin County, I'll drive up there, get a big gallon of that saline, and maybe I'm thinking for my plants, or even for just a face wash.
Actually, the face mist or something. Yeah, since we're working on one of those right now. Yeah,
I think that could be interesting too.
Yeah. There's potentially no waste from the process.
Yeah, which is great, because you don't want any waste. It's too precious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we can't wait to see you both.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for explaining everything about Mupu.
Okay, and if any other questions come up, feel free to get in touch.
Okay, thank you so much, guys.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We're so excited. Have a
Bye-bye.
beautiful day.
Bye,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.